Hi, this is Larry Minetti on TV Confidential. Aloha.
Ed Robertson, welcome you to this week's edition of TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will welcome back Lindsay Wagner. In our second hour, Lindsay Wagner, the Emmy Award-winning actress known around the world to three generations of TV viewers as Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman. This past Wednesday, January 14th, marked the 50th anniversary of the premiere of The Bionic Woman on ABC. To commemorate the occasion, Lindsay is making available some very special limited edition 50th anniversary Bionic Woman memorabilia, which we'll tell you all about when Lindsay Wagner joins us in our second hour. We hope you stay tuned for that. Also coming up in our second hour, we will welcome Mark Malkoff. Mark Malkoff, host of the popular Carson podcast and author of a new book that takes a deep dive into the 30-year history of the Johnny Carson Tonight Show. Mark Malkoff will also join us in our second hour. We hope you stay tuned for that as well. In the meantime, Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are with us for another edition of This Week in TV History. Tony's segment, as always, brought to us by our friends at Story Salon, Southern California's longest-running, regularly performing live storytelling ensemble. StorySalon.com, Facebook.com/Story Salon. This particular edition with Tony and Donna originally aired in December 2015. Tony?
December 12th, 1980, the first episode of Magnum P.I., an American crime drama starring Tom Selleck as Thomas Magnum, private investigator living in Oahu, Hawaii. This came right on the heels of Hawaii Five-0. And same time slot. And
not only that it came on the heels of Hawaii Five-0, it also came on the heels of his two memorable appearances as Lance White on The Rockford Files. And Selleck being seen as a rising star at the time, Universal wanted to develop a show for him, and Thomas Magnum, as originally conceived, was more of a swashbuckling, babe magnet who happened to be sitting. And even though you had an actor who looked like a swashbuckling babe magnet, Selleck wanted, because of his experience with Jim Garner was one of Selleck's mentors. He wanted, and he saw what Garner was able to do with Rockford, in that you were able to tell private eye stories, but still incorporate humor and elements of humanity and vulnerability into the character. Selleck wanted that for Magnum, and surprisingly, Selleck had enough clout that he was able to do that, and that's the Thomas Magnum we saw.
Magnum P.I. is also the first series to show Vietnam veterans, I would say, in a positive light. You were not seeing Vietnam veterans in any... There were, I think, 2 attempts for sitcoms set during the Vietnam War. Good Morning... I think one was not called... Good Night Vietnam. That was what it was called. And I think there was one other one. It escapes me. But the 2 ideas of the sitcoms died. MASH was still going on, but the television critics were pretty much saying, it's too soon. We can't do that. And here you have one where you have the Vietnam veteran being depicted as a productive member of society, because they were always deranged. Actually,
all three of them, because
Rick T.C. and Thomas.
And Magnum, right. They were all, Rick ran a restaurant.
Yeah.
Which was their hangout, and I forget what TC did.
He had the helicopter system.
That's right.
Island hoppers.
Yes, that's right.
And even the character of Higgins, who was not a Vietnam veteran, but he was a military veteran.
A major domo.
Yes, and he was in Her Majesty's
service.
And so somebody who was very sympathetic to those characters as veterans.
Yes.
And that came out in...
As sympathetic as Higgins could be.
As he could be. You had the characters dynamic.
He did not suffer fools lightly.
No, you did have the dynamic which provided a great deal of comedy, but I think when it came to these guys as veterans, there was a certain reverence and respect.
There was a respect,
And I think in many occasions... how Higgins expressed himself about them as veterans, that was also kind of a conduit to the audience, because if you didn't understand these characters, he was the one who could be the voice of since he had a lot of exposition.
Real quickly, you say Magnum premiered on December 12th?
Yes.
December 12th was also the birthday of Frank Sinatra, who guest starred on Magnum.
So Sinatra would be 100.
It would have been, yes, this would be Sinatra's centennial.
Yeah. And Sinatra did appear on Magnum, and I think that was at his request, correct?
If I recall correctly, that was at his request. I mean,
Sinatra wanted to appear on the show.
Yeah, he did not, and he did not do episodic television.
No,
but they accommodated him, and it's one of the more and he did not play himself. He played
because I think the only other time I could think of was Who's the Boss or something like that, where he did play Frank Sinatra, which was phenomenal that he did that. No, it was unheard of.
He played a private detective who either helps Magnum or Magnum helps him in the course, and we learn his backstory. But it was Frank Sinatra playing whoever this guy was, but it was Frank Sinatra, and it was a reminder that Frank Sinatra was a good actor.
Yeah, this is. I mean, how many years after Rat Pack movie? I mean, the Rat Pack really was not. I think they had like one more reunion tour, which did not last long, unfortunately.
But prior to the Rat Pack, he won. I believe he won the Oscar, or was he was either nominated for the Oscar, or no? I think he was nominated for the Oscar for Here to
Eternity. Yeah.
But
I don't remember whether he won.
By the time he was on Magnum, I think a certain generation did not know the Sinatra. Because keep in mind, when he did this episode, you couldn't just go to Netflix and get Ocean's 11 or The Manchurian Candidate or any of these things. Sinatra was your parents' music, or these. I think a lot of people, when he did this, they wouldn't discover who this guy was until there were other mediums where you could easily find him. That was a huge. There were a lot of great guest stars on that show, and there was a famous crossover with Murder, She Wrote, where Jessica Fletcher.
That's right. I remember that.
And it was kind of cool. The dynamic again with Jessica Fletcher, Angela Lansbury, and Higgins. But she had to help get Thomas out of trouble. And but it was a cool. Jessica Fletcher's in Hawaii promoting a book, and then she gets into a little trouble. She needs Magnum, then Magnum gets in trouble, and Jessica gets her out.
Real quickly, and then because I know we have other things to move on. But I was thinking we don't see a lot of network crossovers anymore. Although Fox recently did one, Bones and
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow, yeah,
unexpected.
Yeah,
and really, that is cool. Sleepy Hollow is such a great show, and so well written.
Yeah. I have a few shows TiVo'd that I haven't watched because I've been busy doing stuff. But they're still there.
Let me throw two things about Mac. The voice, we never see Robin Masters, but he was voiced by Orson Welles, who
made no wine before its time.
There was another actor, Reed Crandall, who did the voice of Robin Masters later on after Orson Welles died.
Yeah.
But there was always that hint that maybe Higgins and Robin Masters are one and the same. At the end of the 7th episode of Magnum was killed off. And then he was brought back for an 8th
season.
7th season. I'm sorry, 7th season. He was
that
killed
would
off.
have been subdue if they killed him off
in the 7th episode. Yeah. Which stranger things have happened.
Well, that was supposed to be the end of the series.
That was supposed to be the end of the series. The episode was called Limbo, and then the network decided to renew the show. They wrote the episode thinking they were not coming back.
Yeah.
And that episode was shot, and it aired, or it was ready to be aired, and then they get picked up. And you have
Victoria Principal having a dream.
Almost.
He got out of the shower?
Instead of a trailer for the episode, like the final or making it an event, you have Tom Sutton. You can see he's on video. He was probably in L.A. They probably shot it here. And, it's just him teasing the episode, saying, yeah, we had planned this as our final episode, but we're coming back next year, so just remember we did this when it was a final episode, and you can watch it Thursday. It was something, basically him giving a big disclaimer.
Yeah.
There was, Thursday night on Magnum, and you have like the highlights.
This wasn't my idea, folks.
Yeah, it was because they couldn't just tease the episode as written at this point.
Yeah.
It was a very beautiful episode. I think there's a lot of people who may not have been regular viewers, but they saw this episode. And it was one, I remember back in the day, I recorded it on my VCR. That thing got passed around by everyone who was not a Magnum fan but had heard about it or who missed it. You didn't have TiVo, you didn't have On Demand. That thing got passed around over and over and over. And there was like one slight modification to the episode when it reran at the end of the summer, before the season premiere, kind of explaining Magnum's resurrection, which was a little different than Bobby Ewing's, but it was still around the same time of Bobby Ewing's resurrection. And so there were those jokes, and then they were able to continue on for one more season. But it was, like I said, if you could find it on YouTube or on demand or something like that, it is such a beautifully done episode. And a wonderful John Denver song playing out the end.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hi, this is Lawrence Leckerbill. You are listening to TV Confidential.
December 21st, Phil Donahue is born.
Phil Donahue, in many respects, he is the father of the modern talk show in the sense that he not only was a major influence on Oprah.
Oh, definitely Oprah.
But
yeah.
Oprah, in terms of passing the baton, when Donahue was winding down, Oprah was on the rise, and when Donahue's show finally ended, the ABC owned and operated O&O stations that ran Oprah's show put Oprah in Donahue's time slot.
Yeah. But you look at Oprah's set, and it stayed that way.
Yeah.
She basically took Donahue's format with the guest on stage and her going into the audience. I mean, that was all. She eventually did other elements. I mean, he never gave away a car, but also,
and he never had a book club, and he never had. But basically, it was, and occasionally he would get into tabloidy kind of materials, but it was always.
But it was rare.
It was rare. I mean, there was,
and I think tabloidy was different when he was on. Tabloid was still a periodical.
But even when he would get into taboo-ish kind of topics, it was not a Jerry Springer or Maury Povich kind of approach.
No.
There was still a very thinking person's approach.
Okay, this is weird. Let's explore it.
Yeah,
And I think Phil Donahue also had a sophistication that I don't think anyone, including Oprah, I'm saying it, has never achieved. There was something special about the format of that show that he invented that became a part of our society.
Yeah.
We would have the discussions about Phil Donahue. And keep in mind that he did the show, he started in Dayton, and then I think most people remember Chicago.
Right.
And then he eventually moved it to New York. He was at 30 Rockefeller Plaza when he brought it to an end. But, he had a very specific formula. And oftentimes you would go to the caller.
That's right.
Yeah, is the caller there? And which I don't think a lot of other people.
I don't think nobody else does that anymore.
Did because I think there was a certain risk that he took doing that as well. But you look at Oprah didn't do that. Jerry Springer, I think, was when he started, and I have to say this with a huge disclaimer, for a lot of people. Jerry Springer is the guy with the brick wall, the Jerry.
Yeah.
He had the original version of the Jerry Springer Show was very much Phil Donahue when he started, as a news anchor in Cincinnati, and he had the show starting in Ohio and then moving to Chicago. From a syndication standpoint, it wasn't in a lot of markets. It was in L.A. It was a very smart show. He was being groomed to try to fill the void that Donahue would leave.
And it was like almost a Xerox of Phil Donahue.
Yeah, and I'd say, he and Sally Jesse Raphael were definitely following in, I'd say, Phil's footsteps. Jerry just was not getting those numbers. And then Ricky Lake comes along. Ricky Lake does a lot of the sensational stuff. And then Jerry and his people decide, we need to go after the Ricky Lake numbers.
Yeah.
We can't go after the Phil Donahue. And that's when it changed, and that's when he was in many, many, many more markets. And I had this conversation with many people who did not know the original incarnation of Jerry. And I said, no, it started out because they only know what we know now and what Jerry would call a stupid little show. And so it's like, he was good at one time. He was doing this.
But nobody was watching.
Nobody was watching it.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, survival of the fittest. You adapt or die.
But I think also it showed Phil had the sense to know when it was time to hang it up.
Yeah.
Well, in that respect, he shares a trait with Merv Griffin because Merv ended his show around the same time because Merv saw the landscape and Merv saw where daytime television was going, and Merv said, I don't want to do that. I've been doing my show for 24 years. I don't want to veer from that formula. And he ended on his own terms.
And he kept busy.
He did.
He did keep busy.
He diversified, as we like to say.
Yes, he did. Phil Donahue did come back post 9/11 on MSNBC.
That's right, he did.
And first of all, if my humble opinion, and I think a lot of people agree with me, if he just came back and did the show he used to do, but incorporate some more, the social media that existed at that time. Mm-hmm. Because instead of, if he did the show in the morning in Chicago, the caller was from Chicago. Mm-hmm. So if you were watching it, in L.A. for a while, it was on before the 4 o'clock news on our NBC affiliate. So you saw it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In different markets, he could be in the morning, he could be in the late afternoon. But, you could only call if you were in Chicago watching him live.
Right.
But now we have, by the time he came back, we had mediums where people could call from anywhere in the world, or we didn't have Twitter quite yet. Facebook was not, but we had MySpace. We had other forums where people could send, questions or comments, and they could have responded that way. But otherwise keep it pretty much the same show. They kept trying to fix something that was broke, and I think at the time they were really trying to counter-program the O'Reilly factor. They saw O'Reilly as a super conservative and Phil Donahue as a super liberal, and they wanted to counter-program, and they wanted to fix something that probably wasn't broken. But also Phil, at that time, post 9/11, Marlowe was saying in interviews, he had stuff to talk about. He had something he wanted to say. He wanted to bring back these conversations. I think a lot of people were not ready to have these conversations. Yeah. And the people that he was bringing up, remember, he was also providing a voice for families of victims of 9/11 who were against any sort of military action done in the name of their family members. And at that time, people did not want to hear from these family members. And I think, he just had a lot of trouble with that, and his that incarnation of his show did not, and it just, I don't want to say it ended, it just stopped. They just stopped doing the show.
It's a footnote in the history of Phil Donahue.
Yeah, and it really is a shame because he provided a format that so many other people copied and were using, and at a time when there needed to be more dialogue, he could have been the one to provide that dialogue as opposed to a forum for people to rant or, or if you expressed an honest opinion, you were attacked. And I think he provided a forum for other alternate points of view or points of view that you might not have been exposed to otherwise.
childtelevision.blogspot.com, also storysalon.com. You can enjoy Tony Figueroa's standalone podcast this week in TV history, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find audio. We'll be back with more TV Confidential right after this.
If you've got an ED problem, now you can get generic or herbal blue pills for as little as $2 a pill from Steelman Pills.
800-932-2613, 800-932-2613.